is esophagus looking at. And what I need also, let me have one or two pharynx slides. Alright, I like this slide. This is a very nice one. Sean's again. Sean gets such a good set of slides. Alright. Sean has the best box of slides. Alright, so forgive me, let's get on the road here. My apologies. So there we see now, this is a very good example to show the muscle layer, the layers that we'll get in the intestinal tract. The outermost layer, as we see, is a muscular layer right here. Alright, let's look at it in a little more detail here. So, in fact, this is the esophagus, and this seems definitely to be the upper part of the esophagus. Why is that? Because we're seeing what kind of muscle? Skeletal muscle. Okay? So, well, we're seeing both skeletal and what? Smooth muscle. So that's going to suggest that that's the middle third of the esophagus. So we're back on track again. So the layers that we encounter are 1, the muscularis externa, 2, the submucosa, and then the mucosa will be composed now of the muscularis mucosae, the lamina propria, and the lining epithelium. Okay? So from outside going in, we find the outermost layer. In fact, this is the middle third of the esophagus right here. So somewhere in the posterior mediastinum. So there we see the outermost layer just composed of basically loose connective tissue. Then we get what is referred to as the muscularis externa, which has, as we said, an outer longitudinal layer and an inner circular. And in between these two layers, what we're seeing right here is a nerve plexus, and that is Oesophagus plexus. Okay? So a nerve plexus, which is going to be motor to the muscles, occurs between the outer longitudinal layer and the inner circular layer. Alright? So an adventitia serosa, an externa composed of longitudinal, outer longitudinal layer, an inner circular layer, and in between we find what is referred to as Oesophagus plexus. Then we move in now to the submucosa, and the submucosa of the gut is highly vascularized. So we're going to find a lot of blood vessels in the submucosa. Alright? And in, for example, in the stomach, we're going to see the prominent AV shunts, which will occur there. The so-called AV shunts of Hallock. So this is the submucosa right here, and we are now picking up here now the muscularis mucosae. Okay? So the muscularis mucosae with the tissue above it known as the lamina propria and the lining epithelium, this is going to be known as what? The mucosa. So hence the term muscularis mucosae. That's the muscle layer of the what? The mucosa. Okay? So, going back to that now, we find all the layers of the muscle. Now in the esophagus, which we are going to come back to, this is a nice example. I think in the last exam, there was a nice esophagus like this, and they were asking you to identify maybe what part of the esophagus this is to. And this is a very nice slide showing the middle third of the esophagus. There are one or two places in the body where we find a mixture of smooth and skeletal muscle. And one of the examples is in the middle third of the esophagus. When you do the orbit, you'll find there's a muscle known as the levator palpebrae superioris, and that also has a mixture of skeletal and smooth muscle. Alright. So those are the basic layers. Now let's go back now to the pharynx. Sean, I just have this slide here for a minute. There it is over there. Alright, now let's get back now to the pharynx. Now in the pharynx now, the pharynx is quite different. Alright, the pharynx is quite different. Now the big joke about it is that I found a beautiful slide of the pharynx, And what has happened to it? I was so excited about this pharynx that I didn't know. So, alright, no. In the pharynx, no, what we're getting now is that there is no real muscularis externa per se. What we get instead are the constrictor muscles of the pharynx. So there's a superior constrictor, the middle constrictor, and the inferior constrictor. And these are formed by skeletal muscle. And if you look at this slide, you see that the skeletal muscle is going once again in different directions. Okay? So there we find skeletal muscle going in different directions, and we see outside or external to it. Alright, well, this now is going to be the tissue that we see outside. Well, the plane of where this is cut is a little confusing, because we're now going on to the area of the palatine tonsil. But just want to say that the outermost layer on the slides and the rest that I'll show you will be just what is referred to as the bucopharyngeal fascia. Okay? So we find a connective tissue layer on the outermost aspect of the pharynx, and that will be the bucopharyngeal fascia. Alright? Then we see the constrictors, and the thing that is typical, the beauty of this slide is that it shows what is happening in the pharynx. That the glandular tissue that you see, that glandular tissue tends to be going right down and in between the muscle fibers. Okay? So the glands of the pharynx do something rather strange. They actually now bury themselves down and go down between the muscular fibers of the constrictors. Alright? So there you can see a very, very good example of the glandular tissue. But the reason I looked at the esophagus first is that in the pharynx you do not find a muscularis mucosae. Miss Bachelor, what? We do not find a muscularis mucosae. And remember that muscularis mucosae is what is going to divide a mucosa from a what? A submucosa. Alright? When we have that muscularis mucosae, we can define that area which is between the epithelium and the muscularis mucosae as a lamina propria. And then that layer which is deeper as a submucosa. But in the pharynx, there is no muscularis mucosae. What we find instead is the pharyngobacillar fascia. Okay? And that pharyngobacillar fascia is going to be, if we stain this with a special elastic stain, in fact right here, right at about that level, you notice how you see this layer coming down, and you don't see it's rather pale staining here. That is a fibroelastic membrane which is going to occupy roughly this position. Okay? And then this is going to be replaced in the esophagus by the muscularis mucosae. Alright? So that's the pharyngobacillar fascia. Now I want to point out to you, put a little caveat on that, to say that last and a couple books state something that's a bit confusing. Last is of the opinion that the pharyngobacillar fascia actually disappears, I think he says, somewhere at around the level of Passavant's ridge. Alright? But histologically, the histology textbooks will say that that fibroelastic membrane is going to continue right down to be replaced by the muscularis mucosae. So there are some varying opinions on the pharyngobacillar fascia. Alright? So, in the pharynx, what are we going to see? That there is an outermost loose connective sort of fibroelastic layer, which is known as the bucopharyngeal fascia. That deep to that we get the bulk of the muscle, which are the constrictor muscles of the pharynx. The constrictor muscles of the pharynx. And these constrictor muscles run in different directions. Deep to this, we can just call this